Hi, this video is going to talk about the range rule of thumb, sample and population standard deviation variance as far as the symbols are concerned, and this will be applied a little bit later on. The range rule of thumb tells us that approximately 95% of the data lies within 2 standard deviations of the mean. We will see this later on in the semester, but this just kind of introduces it. So basically, within 2 standard deviations away from the mean, so this is my mean, they use mu for population mean, minus 2 standard deviations, they use sigma for population standard deviation. So between 2 standard deviations, minus or plus, we expect the majority of the data to lie between these two numbers, so they're considered not significant. Anything below 2 standard deviations is considered significant, and anything above 2 standard deviations is significant. Okay, so we'll come back to this a little bit later. Now, as far as notation, now we're going to talk about the mu and the sigma, what those represent. We've seen mu in the last section. Mu is a population mean. The small case sigma is a standard deviation of a population. So we'll come to that next. Okay, so the standard deviation for the population, you will not be asked to calculate that in this particular chapter, but they use a small case sigma to represent the population standard deviation, and it's found very closely to how we find S. The only thing different is the denominator. So we'll come back to that again in chapter 4. So as far as the variance is concerned, the variance is just a square of the standard deviation. So it's whenever you have your standard deviation, which I'm just going to show you, we found back here, to find the variance, all we do is we square it. So the sample variance would be S squared. Again, that's a square of the sample standard deviation. The population variance, which again we'll cover more in chapter 4, is a square of the population standard deviation. So that's how those are related. So here's just a summary. The sample standard deviation is one of the things you can get on your calculator. To square it, that would be the variance. And then again, in chapter 4, we'll talk about a little bit later. If our population standard deviation is sigma, we're going to square that to find the population variance. A couple things about the variance we want to keep in mind. The variance are the square units. So again, if our regular measurements are in inches, these would be like inches squared, which really doesn't make sense. It will definitely be affected by outliers, and it's never negative. You get a 0 whenever all the values are the same. Like again, if we had a basketball team where everybody was the same height. Okay, this will be on the next slide, the empirical rule.